everybody. Welcome back to the Just Make It Pretty podcast. Today, we are talking about challenging comfort zones in the home building industry. And I'm really excited because we're going to touch on topics about technology, about data, and of course, I have a really exciting guest. So if you are interested in any of those topics so far, make sure to stick around until the very end and let's get into it. Welcome to the Just Make It Pretty podcast, the slightly unhinged marketing podcast for home builders and beyond. I'm your host, Sarah Haynes, also known as the Pixel Wizard, and my goal is to tackle the tough stuff that goes in behind the scenes in marketing and offer actionable tips, creative insights, and a little bit of humor to spark some creativity. I'm so glad you're here. Now let's get started. So today, our guest is Melissa Cervin. She is the VP of Marketing at Lombardo Companies. And I'm just so excited to have you on, Melissa. We had a little conversation before this, and I was just like so pumped that this episode came up. So thank you so much for joining me.
I'm really excited to have the conversation. I'm looking forward to it. Thank you for having me.
Of course. Tell us tell us about your role over there at Lombardo and just some general information about you for our listeners who might not know you yet.
Yeah. So I handle marketing for Lombardo Companies, and that encompasses a bunch of different divisions. We do have a property management division that does apartments in Michigan. We also have a custom homes division called Cranbrook Custom Homes in Michigan. But then we have our bread and butter, which is Lombardo Homes, and we have our biggest division is in Southeast Michigan. And then we also have a division in the St. Louis area in Missouri and in Columbia, Missouri. And there we do, in Missouri, actually, we're full custom. In Michigan, we're semi-custom homes, a little bit more of that production model.
Awesome. So you are very busy, it sounds like. Quite a big role. I love to ask right in the beginning of our episodes for everybody to give what brought you to home building? How did you get here? And what do you love about this industry?
So I actually fell into home building on accident. I was supposed to be an elementary school teacher. And when I was going to school for teaching, I got a temp job with a temp agency and they placed me at a home builder. So I literally started out as an administrative assistant at a home builder, a little family owned home builder in Michigan. And just from there, I fell in love with it. If you would have told me that college student initially that you were going to grow up and live in the home building industry your entire career and you were going to be super passionate about it, I wouldn't have believed it. But truly, I can't imagine doing what I do anywhere else. And it's marketing. Fundamentally, I can take these concepts and probably go anywhere else and do what I do, but I just can't imagine doing anything other than home building. So I've literally spent my entire career since I was 17 years old in home building.
That's so cool. Yeah, everybody I talk to, they have that kind of, I just fell in love with this industry. And I don't know, I haven't been in a ton of other industries, but I don't know if that's like across the board, just how people talk, but it is so common in the home building industry. And I think it's so cool because we get to make such a difference for our home buyers, but also I feel like it really touches everybody in the industry as well. So I love that.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's one of those things. I've tried picturing myself like I could market tires, I could market jeans. Like when you fill in something different, there's not anything that has that whole like realm of emotions, and a tire is not super exciting to begin with. And the people who buy tires, like it's not an exciting purchase. Most people dread buying tires. But people love building a new house and just the entire process, setting expectations, working with them. It's for most of our customers, it's a dream, regardless of what stage they're in. It's a dream, and you get to be part of that dream. And even backing it way up and starting with just the beginning of a community, watching a piece of land go from raw land into this beautiful community full of families and beautiful amenities. It's just such a journey, and there's so much feel good to it throughout the entire process. It makes it what we do, the industry that we're in makes it easy to do what we do.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. It's a very exciting journey, whether it's your first home or like your fifth home. There's always a lot of emotion and excitement. And I definitely feed off of that. And I think marketing, we get to see the very best of it. So I feel so blessed to be in home building marketing specifically because I just love it as well. So I know that you have been a really consistent advocate also in this industry for data and technology. And that really speaks to me because I talk about that same thing all the time. But I'd love to hear like the background of that side. Like, where did that passion come from for you?
I really want to have a conversation at some point about how something I did was really intentional, but that the data and technology was really accidental as well. It's funny, like I mentioned, I've been doing this since I was really young. And when I look back at the beginning of my career and even how I transitioned into marketing and in the age I was and the tools specifically that we had available, marketing looked so different. And we did, what so many of us refer to now as traditional marketing. You had your newspapers and your postcards and your signs. And maybe if you had a really big budget, you dabbled in television or radio. But I, you talk about things even as you're growing up, imposter syndromes and things like that. But I remember through a lot of it, especially as I was early on, I kept expecting that moment where I could say definitively that these things worked or that I knew I was reaching the right people. And I kept waiting for that moment when it just didn't feel like I was throwing things at the wall and seeing what stuck. But that's how a lot of the beginning of my career was. I will never forget when I actually hired in here at Lombardo, I met with Anthony Lombardo for breakfast. And I think he did start with good morning. I think there was a good morning, but he immediately went into, I need you to prove to me that radio works. Now, this was long ago enough that we weren't in the world of satellite radio or digital ads on satellite radio. We were still talking traditional, AM, FM radio with regular 30, 60-second spots. And I had to look at this person who I was hoping was going to be my future boss and say, I can't prove to you that radio works because we didn't have any of those tools. I could say that roughly this many people hear about it, will hear our ad, and in theory, it should be 60% female and 40% male, and they should be about this age, whatever the demographics were for that particular station, but there was no proof. So when this world started changing for us, and all of a sudden I had different people reaching out and talking about tools that were available, and it wasn't just tools. Most of these tools do in some way, shape, or form also impact the customer experience. They make the experience for customers better. But with all of these tools, there was this backside to it. And there was like the admin tool where all of a sudden we had data and we had metrics and we could actually prove that people were seeing our ads and people were clicking on things. And first it was cool just to see that, yes, people are seeing our ads. That was the first step into it, right? But then we got to the point where we could see who was seeing our ads. Like we actually had the makeup, a demographic makeup, and it led to more and more targeted marketing. And all of a sudden I had that moment where it wasn't, we finally got past the what's sticking when I throw it at the wall to we can be very intentional and very targeted. And then it was, from that point, it was really focusing on getting leads and focusing on quality leads as opposed to the quantity, where in the past it was always just get as many leads as you can because you knew not everyone who saw your newspaper ad or heard your radio ad or drove by a sign, not everyone was going to be that qualified lead who was going to buy from you. So you needed a bunch of leads to get the ones who were, where now we can really focus on getting those qualified leads because we're so intentional with how we're marketing. And that's what started it. Like all of a sudden it was like, wait, we have data. I can prove who's coming to our site or who's interacting with our tools. I can start talking about what they're interacting with, like what they're passionate about, what they're not passionate about. And it just really changes how you approach marketing when you have information about what your customers are looking at and what they want. And you can even match up and say, yes, the customer we expected at this community is the customer we're getting. And that from there, it's just, I joke sometimes that now I become the data monster. Oh, give me data, give me data. And I'm still in a world where I'm trying to figure out what to do with it all and how can I share it with everyone in my team. But I'm definitely a huge advocate of it. I can't imagine going back to the world that we lived in before. And I love sharing with other people in our industry that remember what that was like. But then I'm also wildly jealous of all of the people that have just started in the last 5 years and going forward, because this is all they will know. And what a tremendously different way to market, but it's such an incredible way. It makes so much more sense. Like I can't imagine not having the tools that we have now.
Yeah, I love that. Like when you get addicted to the new data and you're like, oh, tell me more. I've been so fortunate on the podcast here to have conversations with several of like our vendor partners in the industry and other people where so much new things are happening all the time and new ways to see things and new information coming out that it's so exciting. And I love to talk to people that kind of share that excitement because I definitely think that there is a lot of people who either don't know about it yet or they're a little bit apprehensive of it. And that's totally, it's understandable when you think about the big picture of what that means for us because like I'm sure you've seen like when you get this new information like your role changes and then everything's different and like when you start looking at all those things change really quickly. And so you can look at that as like a wow, this is really amazing. And you can also be like afraid of it a little
Overwhelmed.
bit. Like, yeah, it's like causes a lot of anxiety. And I've seen both sides of that in this industry for sure. I would love to hear your perspective. Like you've really adapted to this, but what do you think about the rest of the industry? Like over the last decade, do you think we're innovating quickly or no?
I think that we are open to conversations. I think that we all joke about this when we're at different conferences and it's like the
Mhm.
industry's worst kept secret, but home building is not quick to innovate or adopt technology. I think for so many years, so many of us did it so differently. And there's a lot of great gut instincts and there's a lot we've all grown our gut I think we have a lot of good instincts because that's what we survived off of
Yeah.
for a really long time. And it's hard to walk away from that because back then there just wasn't data. So your gut had to be what you trusted. So it's hard to abandon that, and I don't think you have to. But I also think that when you start down the path of technology, it's daunting and overwhelming and it's not cheap. Let's be real about that too. When you start adopting some of these things, it's not inexpensive to do. And sometimes it can be very overwhelming. Like where do you even start? If you know you're here and you want to go there, it seems like a really long race to get to that finish line. And by the way, I love data and I've adopted a lot of different things and there's no finish line in sight. Like I don't really know that there is a finish line, but it can just feel really overwhelming. And sometimes I think obviously when stuff's expensive, it's really hard to get the powers that be all to align and approve it and want to move forward, especially when you're not only trying to get a budget approved, but for many of us, as you start having these conversations, you're really talking to people in the room who don't necessarily buy into it yet. What do you mean data? What kind of data? Where is this coming from? How do you know this can't be right? Like, especially when you start running into data that maybe contradicts some of the things we've historically done or those gut feelings, it's really easy to want to discredit the data. Or so you're not only asking for more money to do these things that provide this data, but you're also having to sell typically other people in the room on why this is valuable. It can be overwhelming to have those conversations. And I know I've had conversations for years and there have been lots of no's or I don't understand or I don't see the value, but they were just continuous conversations. And really transparency is huge. Being able to show why this stuff is important and what it can do. And that's where you mentioned a lot of our vendor partners in the industry just a few minutes ago. And I have to give them a quick shout out and give them so much credit because that's where so much of my education has come from. There's a lot of innovative minds out there that some of our partners are thinking so many steps ahead of where I can even imagine myself being to innovate these tools and bring them to us. But with that, they're also educating the people who are excited to learn about it. And once I have a certain level of education, it's really easy to go into a room full of my peers or leadership and talk about how and why these things matter. So that's my biggest thing that I've learned is transparency about how this is going to help is really helpful in having those conversations. But it's hard to start and yeah, we're a little bit slow to adopt and I know that a lot of these conversations are just being started for a lot of people and a lot of builders.
Yeah. Yeah, and resources are, you have to take that into consideration. That's a real thing. Like some of the new tech and things like that can be expensive. I think our vendor partners in this industry they're so good about that though, and they are so good about educating and like sharing this. And I learn something every single time I talk to them. Like I had I've had several on the podcast now. So go back and listen to all those episodes because they share all of this information and knowledge so freely. And that's another thing that I really love about the home building industry. We all share knowledge very freely. And in my opinion, like that is the way that we can all rise together. And so having these conversations is really so important to me because like those people who do feel that fear or that resistance, like the only way that we can help them is by talking about it and experimenting and sharing all of that.
I think you touch on a really valid point. A lot of these vendor partners, 100%, do they have a product to sell to us as builders? Yes, they do. The the area of my life where I probably feel least sold to is actually from all these vendor partners because they are so passionate about what they do that they're happy just to get on a call and have a conversation with you. There are certain people in this industry where I know I need to carve out, like, this is going to be less than a 60-minute conversation if I make this call right now. But I love and appreciate that because, and by the way, it's not a 60-minute sales call. It's, I'm working on this and I did this and I always learn something. So these people are really, they love having a captivated audience, someone who's interested and intrigued, and they want to tell you all about it. And not solely for the purpose of selling it. Obviously, yes, that helps, but they're not sales pitches. If they can get someone on the phone that's just interested in it, they will 100% talk your ear off about it. I
Mhm.
think that's fabulous. I love the fact that it's about so much, it's really about the technology. It's about that passion in home building technology and MarTech that they're excited about and they want to share it with other people like them. And somewhere in there, and I don't mean this disrespectfully, but it's nice somewhere in there, like the sale is an afterthought. Oh, you'd like to do it? Let's schedule another call and we'll talk more about that now that I've spent an hour educating you. So they are really
Yeah.
great at that. And I would say that for all of them.
I really appreciate that. And I feel like it is slowly breaking down those barriers for a lot of the builders that I talk to. So I'm really excited about some of the new AI stuff that has been coming out and things like that. But I'm curious to hear what kind of tools do you feel are out there right now that builders aren't utilizing maybe to the fullest or we're still learning about.
So I think AI is still a very scary conversation. It's in all of our worlds. We don't all know quite how or when or where to be using it. So I think that's a conversation. And even if you notice when you go to some of your different conferences or classes, like those are the classes that are full because I think we're all trying to figure out. We all know we're supposed to be there, but how and why and what will it do? And so that I think that is going to be just such a journey over the night. The journey started, AI is not coming, it's here, we're using it in so many different aspects already, but it's only going to continue to evolve. So that conversation is going to keep happening. And I think it is one of the harder, more daunting conversations because it is so big. I think for the sake of conversations like the one we're having, there are several builders out there that haven't even necessarily started the journey or they're just tiptoeing in. For us, we might have to give a huge shout out to our interactive design platform and it was a huge undertaking, but it's something that can be started with very small steps. And you hear this in different conversations. None of these things have to be done in big bites. Like you don't have to be inspired and after listening to this and say, I'm going to go do an interactive design platform and I'm going to get it all done by May 2026. It's much easier to say, you know what, currently we have static floor plans and elevations. I'm going to transition. Oh, I'm going to set a budget and put together my team and a schedule, and we're going to transition to interactive floor plans. And once you get that done, and by the way, that's not a short amount of time. To that, you can say, hey, you know what, I want to add the interactive site maps. And then you can start, and then from there, I want to add a design portion. I want people to be able to customize their exteriors. And then you can add an interior. So you can really craft a plan for you or your builder depending on, it can be baby steps because when you do it in baby steps, not from a project standpoint, it doesn't feel overwhelming, but even from a leadership standpoint, if you're trying to get people to buy into this and see value in it, when you're doing it in baby steps like that, it's funny. One day we had static plans and then we had interactive plans. And if I were to suggest now going back to static plans, my team would say, what, like, are you crazy? Why would we do that? Because they've been using them. They're used to them and they love them and they see value in them. So when you take these baby steps and you start introducing things one at a time, the team starts using them and they not only buy in, but they become a big advocate of them. So it makes it easier for each next step. And before you know it, you can finally reach that finish line and you have an interactive design platform. With us, for us, that's been really revolutionary and understand. First of all, it helped us during COVID when we actually went through that period where things were a little uncertain. And in Michigan specifically, we had a number of shutdowns where we actually couldn't go into our workplaces for several weeks at a time. And it really could have and should have shut down our business. But because we had the interactive design tool on our website, people were able to keep shopping. They were able to keep looking through floor plans and elevations. They were able to move forward in the process, even though they weren't able to come into a model home or sit face to face with a sales manager. So it was hugely helpful just in that event in and of itself. And I think that's where our customers learn too, that it was a good way to shop, that you could do these things online, and it was nice to have that convenience. But I also appreciated that from that, we were able to see what people were clicking on. What floor plans did they really like? What floor plans didn't they? What options were most popular? Were there options that were phasing out and weren't popular anymore? When you broke it down by community, you had some communities where it definitely wasn't a ranch community. So maybe we don't focus on those so much in our marketing, and we talk more about two-story homes and the different options that they have available and things like that. So it really gave us some insights. So that's been huge for us. It really has been a game changer, and it's one of my most important tools. I also work with a couple of other companies as far as doing more predictive stuff. So Audience Town has been great as far as providing data. I'm able to see people who come to our website. I get a lot of demographic details. So these are people that aren't necessarily buyers yet, but I'm able to see the people who are going to our community specific websites and see what those demographics are. And it's funny, I talked to my team about this. I had to do a marketing 101 class for Lombardo Homes and had some of our own team members sit in. And it's the part where they all, ooh, but I had that conversation where I said, yeah, when people go to our website, I can see details. I can see household income. I can see if they own or rent. I can see the value of their house, credit score. I can see what pets and how many of those pets they have. Like, you have fish, you think no one knows? I know you have fish and you have 3 of them. And it was by the end of that call or the end of that, it's like I had, their eyes were wide open and I had to explain, listen, it's not, I don't know that you, John Smith, have 3 fish. But it's a great way for us to be able to go in and verify that what we're expecting at our individual communities, and all of our communities have different demographics, personalities, but you can go in and do that gut check and make sure that the traffic that we're getting is what we expect, or it tells you very quickly if it's not what we're getting. My first case study, if you will, with Audience Town, right after I became a customer, was I had a community. I expected it to be a single family community, everything with a lot of younger children. And there was nothing about this community that led us to believe it would be an empty nester community. We offered mostly 2-story homes with 1 ranch plan. There are not very many amenities, very large home sites. It's in a rural area where it's not necessarily very close to shopping and dining and all of those sorts of things. So it's just not really conducive to what you would expect an empty nester community buyer to want. And we went for a comp, and our sales manager started with, you guys probably aren't going to believe me, but I swear I'm getting the empty nester buyer. I'm getting a lot of this customer and they want ranch plans, and they don't necessarily love our ranch plan because our ranch plan was more of an entry level ranch, and these were obviously move down buyers. So I was able to pull up Audience Town, and sure enough, like, all of the data completely supported that the traffic we were getting was not what we expected it to be. It was a different buyer profile altogether. And from that, we made changes. We introduced some different ranch plans. We took away some of the colonials, or 2 stories, excuse me. And those are the types of things I love to have those platforms for and have the data for, to be able to use to reinforce. Like, if we would have just gone with our gut in that case was wrong.
Yeah.
And the data told us that.
Oh, you could have spent so much money marketing to the wrong group of people and like shooting yourself in the foot the whole time before figuring that out. That's crazy. Yeah. I had a really interesting conversation with Christine Blackledge from Audience Down. Her episode should be out by the time this one comes out. I should be a few back, but she said, she was like, people say, oh, how is this even legal? All of this information. And she was like, it is. But it's because the internet already knows this stuff about people. And
Mhm.
so anyone who's not like going out to find it or using it, they're just missing out on something that is already there in a lot of cases. And it's just an education thing because I think a lot of people just still don't know that's even possible. And she confirmed that because everyone's mind is just blown when she goes through this whole sales pitch, and I'm like, my mind's blown. It's crazy how much you can actually do. And I would think that the more people, especially in home building, that learn that, the more excited they're going to be because, like your example, like you probably saved so much money just with that one community.
Yep. No, it's very interesting. I always joke that as a consumer, the technology and data scares the heck out of me because I know as a consumer, when I'm online looking, shopping for jeans or new shoes, or that somewhere in the background, all of the stuff is it's just adding
Mhm.
to my digital profile, if you will. So it's, as a consumer, it's scary, but as a marketer, it's gold. Going back to the beginning of our conversation and how before we had nothing targeted, we really knew nothing about our audiences or who was seeing our stuff. And now the level of information that we do have available, even at different phases of that prospect phase of home buying, it's I can't imagine going back. It allows you to be so intentional with what you're doing and just hone in and make, like, you have this opportunity to always make everything a little bit better, a little bit tighter. It can be as simple as when you go to your website, the pictures that you use, you change the pictures for different communities based on the customers, the demographic that you're expecting in that community. When I have a community that I see through Audience Town, everyone owns, I'm going to use a cat because everyone talks about dogs, but when you've got a community and they're all cat lovers,
Yeah.
forget the golden retriever, as cute as he is. I want to get me some cats in those pictures
Mhm.
and start talking about how kitty friendly it is. But it gives you the opportunity that these things that you're seeing are important to your prospects online. You can continue that message onto the website. So when they are visiting you specifically, you're speaking to them, like you're beginning that emotional connection, even though they've never walked through the door and even though they haven't talked to a sales manager yet.
It's funny because you said as a consumer, all that data like scares you. Everything is being put into a profile. I hear that a lot, and I get it because I'll say something and I know my phone's listening, and I'll start getting ads for that thing. But I push back on that a little bit too because like when you go on social media or you go and you're searching things, it's annoying when the results are not what you care about. If you go on TikTok and you're like, I don't care about any of these videos, you're going to be annoyed. But in order to get that information about you, that's your algorithm, that's all of your online data. It does seem scary, but like the more that we can customize this experience for the people who are coming to our websites, that are interacting with our social, all of the online platforms, the happier they're actually going to be because they're actually seeing things that they care about. And this is actually aligned with what they're looking for.
Catch 22, and you're 100% right. Yeah. As a consumer, it's scary. As a marketer, it's fabulous. But I agree with you wholeheartedly that it does, from a customer experience standpoint, our digital profiles allow us those better customer experiences
Mhm.
throughout most of what we buy.
Yeah, and I think it's becoming the norm now. Like when I
We all
go
know.
and buy on Amazon, like I want this stuff to make sense for me. I don't want to search something and get weird results. And it's the same thing when I go search for a home. It's like I want the results that come up to make sense for me. I don't want to have to weed through 15 different builders that don't have what I want.
Exactly.
So you're really doing your buyers a favor by looking through all of this and making these adjustments. I'll always to give like tips if I can or like advice. So you've already given some great ones, like just taking small steps, I think is like one of the biggest things. Like just do one little thing and don't feel like you have to do it all at once. That's a huge one because I know that overwhelm is a big reason why people won't do change just in general. But do you have any other tips that you wish the home building industry, if they would just everyone would listen to this, we would be so much better off? What is your best advice?
Goodness, my best advice, like, really our goal, we're all looking to provide our customers with a great customer experience. And obviously, fundamentally, we all want more sales. So it's interesting how we fight ourselves even in our journey to get there. But I think being brave enough start the conversations, have the conversations. And I think there's a big fear factor for a lot of us in just learning what we don't know. When AI first started, like that, when those words, those letters first started getting thrown around, I felt wildly out of what's the word I'm looking for? I felt uncomfortable about AI because I was smart enough to know that this is somewhere that I need to be and this is something I need to be doing, but I don't really understand it. I don't really know how to do it. So when people start talking about it, it makes you, when people start talking about something you don't know, it makes you feel really uncomfortable. And when you're doing any of these things, whether it's like starting with baby steps for interactive floor plans or the interactive design platforms or AI, whatever that is, we all have to go through this period where we don't know something. This stuff didn't exist years and years ago, so we all didn't know it at one point. So you have to be comfortable enough to understand that you don't know it and know that's okay and go learn about it. So I think sometimes that's the biggest example of us getting in our own way. It's just it's really uncomfortable. I don't understand it. So if I ignore it, then it's okay. We can just keep doing things the way that we've been doing. And it's just that's your typical burying your head in the sand. And my biggest problem with that is while we're burying our head in the sand, our customers that have changed so much. Our customers, the consumers expect a digital experience from us. They expect these advances in these tools. It's interesting. We get this feedback, and I can't imagine I'm the only builder who's getting this feedback. I don't want to put words in all builders' mouths, but the number of comments I've had on surveys from people saying, I can visualize my car, I can build that online, I can see a piece of furniture in my room that I'm going to buy off Amazon or Ashley Furniture or whatever. I can see this pair of jeans in 25 different colors on this model. Why can't I envision my house? It's just that the consumers are only going to demand more. They're never going to say, oh, never mind. It's no big deal. I don't need to visualize the biggest purchase of my life. We can continue to fight it, but it's not going away. And there's something huge about being able to meet the customers where they're at in their journey and provide them the tools to do the research, to learn about home building, to build their house online, to understand pricing on that online, and feel really comfortable before they've ever even walked through the door. And that's something I think that more and more of us are talking about it, and I hope it has become and continues to become a very common conversation in our builder world. But going back to 18-year-old me just starting out compared to where I'm at today, back when I first started doing this, the whole message was on your marketing, put just enough information to make people curious so they'll pick up the phone and call, but don't give too much information so they don't have a reason to call. Like we want the opportunity to talk to them, to get them in the office, to be able to sell to them. Now, do we still want to get them in the office today to be able to sell to them? Absolutely. That's the goal. But the customer has changed because the world has changed. So our customers, they're not going to come into the office or pick up a phone and call us if any information is missing. They really do want to go through the process and research as much as they can and click on the things they like and build their house to the best of their ability using our tools and essentially qualify themselves, make sure they can afford it, make sure that as a builder, we have their price point and the floor plan that fits them in a community that works for their lifestyle. They want to know all of those things before they waste any of their time talking to a sales manager. So it goes back to what I said at the beginning, where the leads in this day and age, the abundance might seem different, but the difference is too, when we finally have someone walk through the door, there's not anyone who walks in and doesn't know what we're selling and what our price point is, and typically what the options are, and even what home sites are available. So when they walk in, they're coming in with all of their printouts and the information or pulling it up online and saying, hey, this is what I want. Can we have a conversation? But they're walking in already with the intention of buying. It's a much different process than 20 years ago when they walked in and just said, oh, what are you guys doing here? What is this model home? And what is your pricing? Oh, I can't afford this. I'm going to go down the street. Like those aren't the conversations we're having in a sales office anymore. That was a long-winded way to say at some point we need to educate ourselves on some of these technologies. And I know it's scary to do. I don't like not knowing stuff. I like feeling like I know a lot about a lot of things. So when I don't know something about something new, it's wildly uncomfortable. It makes me feel uncomfortable and maybe I don't know
Yeah.
what I'm doing because now this is the new technology in my world and I know nothing about it. At one point, we all knew nothing about it. So take some time and learn about it and then start taking the first steps.
Yeah, then it's never too late. There's always going to be people that are at that same place as you. Don't wait, but also don't feel like you've waited too long already and it's just hopeless because a lot of the technology that we are playing with right now and learning about didn't exist 6 months ago, even like a year ago wasn't even there. So no one's an expert yet on a lot of these things, except maybe the people creating it, but most of us are not experts.
Yeah, now's the time, but it's like you said, it's never too late. Like you can, yeah, but moving forward is important. I do want to say too, I think something I wish we did more, and I think some people are great at it, but I think that we can be very siloed as an industry. Reach out to other people. LinkedIn is a great resource. And again, going back to algorithms, typically if you're in home building, a lot of your LinkedIn
Yeah.
algorithm is other home builders, your network. That's typically what it is. But if there's other people in your world that you've seen that are doing these things, and you don't quite know how to get started, or you just have questions about it, reach out. I would love anyone to reach out and ask me questions or say, I'm not really sure how to get started. Can you tell me how you did that? And by the way, I'm just going to be really honest with you. When I started my journey, I didn't know it was a journey. I didn't know I was going to turn into the data girl. I didn't know that was going to be a thing that I never would have seen that for myself. But reach out and talk to someone else and ask those questions. I'm going to be very transparent with you right now and say, I love everything that I have. I love data. I know that as I get more, I tend to ask more questions of my vendors. Ooh, since we can do this, can we also do this? Because that's what it does. And now I've gotten a little bit like I've gotten this appetite and it's like, ooh, we can do this, but it'd be really great if we could do this. But I'm
Yeah.
also sitting in a place where I have a ton of data and there's things I still haven't figured out. What is the best way to share it with my whole company? So it's not just marketing and even sales that's benefiting from it. How can I make sure as we're starting the process of when we're starting to look at land before we've actually bought land, like how can we use this data to make sure that what we're buying and intending that it works today and 3 years from now when we start and then 5 years from now when we finish that community. I still have people in my world that don't necessarily trust the data. So these are journeys that I'm still on and I don't necessarily have the answers to all of it because I'm walking through them right now and I'm doing the best I can. And I think I've figured out a lot of things, but there's still stuff where it's like, how can I make this better? How can I make sure we're using data to change that our historical approach to things and it's not just siloed in this one section. And there are a lot of other people around me where it is, hey, how are you doing this? Or can I ask what you're doing with this tool? How did you talk to leadership about it? Or how do you present the information weekly or monthly, or do you present it at all? And I also think that it's important to make sure that as you introduce these tools that you're aware of the people they impact. Like you said in the very beginning, sometimes these can be scary and the tools can seem like they're replacing other things. And I think having that conversation in the very beginning about what is beneficial for what the benefit of these tools are for us and for the customer, but then also anyone who needs to be reframed. I like to talk about
Mhm.
salespeople sometimes when I bring on new stuff, that's when they're like, oh no, but my job, because
Yeah.
they used to always have information. And it's just understanding that their value in that position. Like they're still sales managers are as important as they've ever been to us, but that their value has changed over the years. So the way they sell now and their value in that sale is different than what it was 15 years ago. Same with this data coming into our leadership team. It might change things for us, but the value is just shifted. And making sure people understand that. So there's not this reluctance to the tools because somehow it's changing our job, or God forbid, we might not have a job. I have a ton of data. It's all in marketing. I assure you my job is still very important because I'm busy sifting through data a lot.
Yeah, such a good point too. That's like the biggest fear is everyone's, oh my gosh, like AI is going to take my job or whatever. And I don't personally believe that, but I understand why the fear is there because
Yes.
it has changed everything that we do.
I've had to take time and make sure that consistently my data is telling the right story and see, like
Yeah.
before I finally get that buy-in that, oh, Mel's got data and it's right, let's talk to her about it. But at some point, one of the biggest silos is when and we all, everything, so much of what we do can be subjective. And when you have a bunch of smart people in a room together with a lot of opinions, whose opinion's right, or whose opinion's more important, or whose opinion sells more houses.
Yeah.
But when you're starting to rally around the data that's telling you an actual black and white story, all that subjectiveness goes out the room, and it doesn't matter whose story or gut or historical experience is more prevalent or important. It's all about the data. Data tells you the story and it gives you a chance to rally around it. This is the data. How do we move forward? What are we going to do with it?
Yeah. Yeah. It gives you that starting point. I have absolutely loved this conversation. So how, if someone has those questions for you and just wants to chat, what would be the best way to connect?
I'm on LinkedIn, and I'm trying to be better about being fairly active on LinkedIn. That's been my latest journey. So you can reach out to me there under Melissa Cervin. And if anyone ever wants to just shoot me an email, I meant it sincerely. I love these conversations and would welcome anyone reaching out. You can always just email me at mcervin@lombardohomes.com.
Awesome. Yes. And I've been following your posts on LinkedIn. I love them. I love seeing everything that all of your new strategy, I guess, on there. You've been posting a lot more. So I really love it. So go check her out. I'll put the link in the description box for her profile so that you can connect there. Make sure you come back next week. We'll have more topics like this one, more guests. Hit that subscribe button so you get an alert and this episode, because that helps out my algorithm. And thanks again, Melissa. Thank you for all of your time and all of your knowledge. This has been amazing.
Thank you. It was a great conversation. I appreciate it.
No worries. All right. Bye, everybody. We'll see you next week.